I don't recall if it was Erica Stepp or the Iceberg who did this, but a few years ago, one of them did a video calling out an article that was a list regarding NASCAR that whoever did the video called the worst NASCAR article he had ever read. I even saw that the Reddit clods once called out an article as the worst NASCAR article ever. Well, I have found an article that is in fact the worst NASCAR article ever put out. And I'm going to talk about it. Funny enough, it's from the same website as the article roasted by the Reddit clods. But it's not that one. It's an entirely different one. Today, I'm going to show you the absolute dumbest NASCAR article that I have ever read. This is 13 NASCAR racers who can't drive and 12 of the all-time best as reviewed by me. First of all, the fact Casey Mears is the cover driver for the article makes me wonder how Kamikaze Games hasn't roasted this article by now. So, this article was written back in 2018 on some website called hotcars.com. Oh goody. So, let me read a couple of these sentences in the intro here. Started way back in 1948, already off to a great start. It showcases 3 exciting top series regularly, including the Sprint Cup Series, Nationwide Series, and Camping World Truck Series. Nationwide was Xfinity by this point. Also, you may also want to pick some of your favorite drivers already. This way, you would have a much better idea of who to cheer for. To help you with that, here's a look at some of the best NASCAR drivers of all time, along with the ones who clearly can't drive. Oh, this should go well! The article starts with 12 of the all-time bests, so we'll start there too. Mario Andretti. Okay, I don't disagree that Mario Andretti is an all-time great, but specifically for NASCAR? By itself? Probably not. In all of NASCAR, he only has 14 starts, obviously all in Cup. Never came close to a full season. He does have 1 win, and it was in the 1967 Daytona 500, and has 3 top 10s in those 14 starts. But if we're going by NASCAR alone, I don't know if Mario is technically eligible in that regard. At least everything that was said about Mario in the article is accurate. Trust me, the fact I had to say that is a sign of things to come. Bobby Allison. Okay, this is very agreeable. I believe most people would label Bobby Allison as an all-time great in NASCAR history. And I'm glad this article references Bobby's website as a source for info regarding him. Trust me, that will also be a problem later on in the article, unfortunately. It even mentions the 85th NASCAR win, which, given the rest of the article, is actually very impressive. Couple errors here, though, as for some reason IROC and USAC were separated from the rest of the previous paragraph, and they spelled Davey Allison's first name wrong. Compared to the rest of the article, that's minor. Darrell Waltrip. Well, I'm not big with him, but he does have the stats to be considered an all-time great. Again, the stats the article put out are pretty much accurate. The only thing I got wrong was the last sentence calling the Truck Series the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Yes, he joined the Truck Series as an owner during the Craftsman, not Craftman Truck Series. I will give him credit for using the name of that era, because in 2018, it was called the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. So there is that. Jeff Gordon. Again, like Darrell Waltrip, I'm not big with him, but his stats do give him the argument for being an all-time great in NASCAR. Everything here is actually pretty much right. Though I question why you needed biography as one of the sources for this project. Kyle Busch. Well, for the record, this isn't entirely going to be accurate because this article was put out in 2018, so take it for what it's worth. which is not much, but still. The weirdness now begins here. First, it says that Kyle's own website says he unofficially started driving when he was 6. How do you unofficially start a career? According to biography, again with biography, he made his NASCAR debut in the NASCAR Truck Series. So apparently the Truck Series had no sponsor in 2001. Okay. They also didn't discuss the controversy regarding why he was pulled after a few races. I also like it that it says he was apparently chosen to replace Terry Labonte in the 5 car. Apparently chosen. That's cute. The article also never discusses how he went from Hendrick Guinea Pig to Joe Gibbs' top priority driver. Now again, this was 2018, so with Kyle being current and the first of the current guys on this list, the stats listed will be obscured a little bit. But some things were a bit off outside of that, but unfortunately we're only getting started. Matt Kenseth. Now, unless you're Erica Stepp, this is realistically the first brain scratcher on the list. Like, yeah, Kenseth does have a Cup Series title, and 39 wins in Cup, and 29 in Xfinity, which the article does not mention. But does anyone else really regard him as an all-time great? If you say yes, just wait until you realize who was left off this particular part of the list. Trust me on this one. As for the rest of the article, I am surprised that it brings up the lower-level series that Kenseth had raced in before NASCAR, like ASA and even ARTGO, which I had completely forgotten about before doing this video. It also mentions the Hooters late models, which it refers to as later models. And honestly, I'm not sure Kenseth in that series was accurate because I assume it meant the Hooters Pro Cup Series, which is now referred to as the X-1R Pro Cup Series, which Kenseth has no stats for on Racing Reference. Other than that, it's all good. But Kenseth as an all-time great is a head-scratcher. You will realize why at the end of this particular segment. But moving on, Martin Truex Jr. Okay, now there are potential arguments for Martin Truex Jr. also being a head-scratcher as an all-time great. Although, personally, I would rank him above Kenseth. He's only 8 wins off of Kenseth as of the end of 2021, and that's while Truex has had seasons in not the best equipment. He also has more NASCAR titles overall in 3, 2 in Xfinity and 1 in Cup, compared to Kenseth's 1. And although Kenseth's top 10 percentage is highest in Xfinity, Truex's win percentage is actually higher in Xfinity than Kenseth's. As for the stats regarding Truex, it is accurate up to May of 2018 when this article came out. So to consider Truex an all-time great in 2018 is a bit of a head-scratcher. Perhaps it was recency bias since he was named the Cup Series champion in 2017. Also, he achieved as many as 16 Cup wins up to that point, like a NASCAR Heat player playing on an Xbox unlocking the Win a Race achievement, right? The joke was bad wording. Anyway, there can be an argument today in the modern era, but overall, I guess we'd have to wait until Truex retires to make a full assessment or whether or not Martin Truex Jr. can be considered an all-time great. Tony Stewart, very agreeable. I think most people, especially in the modern era, would consider Tony Stewart an all-time great. He definitely has the stats to back that up. I also like that we're going back to actual sources like motorsports.com, although the wording could use some work. He also became the Indy Racing League champion in 1997. Around the same time, Stewart also received the Indianapolis 500 Rookie of the Year award in 1996. No, genius, that was literally the year before. It's supposed to say, Stewart won the Indianapolis 500 Rookie of the Year award in 1996 and followed it up by winning the Indy Racing League championship in 1997. The article also makes an error saying Stewart owns and drives the 14 in the Cup Series. Now, this was 2018, so Stewart would have been retired from racing the 14 at that point. So that was wrong, but believe me, it gets worse. Jimmy Johnson. Whether you're pro playoff or whether you think he's an absolute cheat, his stats do give him the argument of being an all-time great. However, the cracks begin to show in the article. Just read the second sentence alone. Johnson happens to be a 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. It's an all-time record that he proudly shares with the likes of Earnhardt Street and Richard Petty. The other sentence was more of a prediction than anything, but for those of us today knowing the truth, you can be sure that he is not yet done adding to his victories. Yeah, about that. Kevin Harvick. Okay, I can't tolerate the little clod, but his stats do give him the argument of an all-time great, though I will argue his career completely changed based off one particular event. Otherwise, his stats wouldn't be anywhere close to what they are today. But anyway, his portion of this article is pretty much correct up to 2018, except for the fact that there was a mention of Harvick's stint in the 88 Xfinity car for Junior Motorsports as if he was still there, when he last raced in that car in 2016. Dale Earnhardt Sr., oh great, the original mega baddie. Most of his segment of the article was accurate, but over-exaggerated. First of all, for using biography as a source again. Ugh. Second of all, the assumption to the origin of Dale's most synonymous nickname of the Intimidator was a bit more than inaccurate. This is because of the aggressive way he always attacks the race in his car. No, it's because he was notorious for wrecking people. That's why he was called the Intimidator. Last but not least, the last paragraph which talks about 2001. Yep, the 500. At least, unlike Pawn Stars, they got the race right with it being the Daytona 500. However, the description of the crash, his car had flown into a wall and he died on impact. Now, bro, his car did not fly into the wall. Ralph Dale Earnhardt Jr. I like it that they referred to him by the full name of Ralph Dale Earnhardt Jr. They didn't even do that with Senior. Let's see. In fact, race fans have selected him as NASCAR's most popular driver for as many as 14 consecutive times. Well, it's 15, actually. Also, according to his website, at least not biography again, he has also been named one of America's top 10 favorite athletes, which typically includes the likes of Peyton Manning, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James. Manning, maybe. Jordan, very likely. LeBron? No. Indeed, Earnhardt Jr. was just as successful in NASCAR racing as his father. Well, in some aspects, yes, but for the most part, stat-wise, no. However, I will say that if Jr. was as a top priority with the teams he was with over his career, like his dad was with RCR throughout his entire stint there, he would have been much closer. So there is that. So, that is all 12 of the all-time greats in NASCAR, according to this article. Just one problem. We're totally missing some drivers here. If we're including other drivers notorious for other racing series other than Cup, then in other racing series in NASCAR, you're missing out on racers like Richie Evans, Mike Stefanik, and likely Sam Ard, Tommy Houston, and Ron Hornaday. And you're also missing out on some all-time greats in Cup, like Cale Yarborough, Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin, Bill Elliott, Herb Thomas, David Pearson, and, oh yeah, Richard Petty. The article literally mentions Richard Petty in the Jimmy Johnson portion of the article, and yet Richard didn't get his own segment. Even worse, we're only getting started. So, the main premise of this article was the 13 NASCAR racers who can't drive. If the person who wrote this, more often than not, butchered the 12 all-time best in NASCAR, then who the heck does this person consider the 13 all-time worst? Let's find out! Number 13, Brett Bodine. Now, Brett was the least successful and undoubtedly the most unlucky of the three Bodines, but to say he's one of the worst? Not really. He does have one cup win, though Darrell Waltrip will argue that to death. He also has 16 top 5s, 61 top 10s, and 5 poles and 480 starts, but you have to consider the fact that he never really had level A equipment. Yeah, he drove for Bud Moore and Junior Johnson, but Bud's best days were in the past, and Junior was at the tail end of his ownership tenure. In Xfinity, and this surprised me as I totally did not know this, he has 5 wins, 31 top 5s, and 52 top 10s, and all in 77 starts. Okay, he hadn't raced in Xfinity since 1999, and all 5 of his wins were before I was born. But considering that many don't see him in the light of his 2 brothers, one who's won the Daytona 500 and one who's won a couple championships, those stats actually aren't too bad. The article decided to be funny and say he also had 0 truck wins, but he's literally only made 3 starts and all of them were in 1998, so not really a significant argument there. Also, this is the first time Racing Reference was, well, referenced, but incorrectly as Racing Reference Info. Unfortunately, it's not the last time. And it only gets worse. Number 12, Lake Speed. A lot of these drivers will be classified as a driver who were never part of a level A team, or a guinea pig on a level A team, or even a level B team, or were on a team that was level A at some point in time, but most certainly not when that driver was with that team. Expectedly, Lake Speed is one of those drivers. Also, what the heck article? Things were looking up for Speed before his racing career took a turn for the worst? Bruh, he's not dead! Anyway, the article mentions his karting championships, but not the notable person that was his rival during that time. According to Racing Reference Info, here we go again, he only has 1 cup win. The article does not reference his 16 top 5s and 75 top 10s in his 402 starts. The article also lists the fact that he's never won a single race in Xfinity or the K&N Pro Series West. But the article does not tell you that his career starts in both of those series are 6 and 2. Really, article? I also find it interesting that the explanation about his retirement comes from NASCAR Driver of the Day. Okay, moving on. Number 11, Dick Brooks. Okay, now, honestly, I don't know Dick Brooks all that well, so I needed the help of Racing Reference to verify some info regarding him on this one. So, according to Race Reference Info, it's getting worse. He has 1 win. His other stats? In Cup, he has 57 top 5s and 150 top 10s, which the article literally references later on, actually. Not altogether, like it's supposed to. It also makes note that he never won in the K&N Pro Series West. How many starts did he have in that series? 1. I also don't know why the Daytona 500 qualifier races were referenced here when it came to him. Legends of NASCAR was referenced here for some reason. The total career earnings was also referenced, but you could literally look at that at Racing Reference. Considering the era he competed in, and the fact only 3 of his seasons he made every start in, with 4 others being close to full-time, 150 top 10s and 358 starts actually isn't too bad. When he did full seasons, his final point standings weren't too bad either. Number 10, Bobby Hillin Jr. I can see where this one goes because of his stat line. His best team far and away in Cup was the Stavola brothers, which, based on their own stat line, I presume to be a level B team during their era. They have 4 wins, and 3 of them was with Bobby Allison, who's an otherworldly talent. The one other win was with Bobby Hillin Jr. It's funny that the first thing the article says on Bobby Hillin Jr. was that he is a rather accomplished former NASCAR driver. Then why would you classify him as a bad driver who can't drive? Then it follows it up with, after all, he had been the youngest driver in NASCAR's entire history to win at the Superspeedway. They didn't even specify which Superspeedway. Spoiler alert, it was Talladega. They do correctly mention that he did drive for his dad's team in Cup, though I don't know why they needed the Indianapolis Motor Speedway website to tell him that. He does have only that 1 win in Cup according to Racing Reference Info, again with that. His other stats in Cup are 8 top 5s and 43 top 10s in 334 starts, which compared to others on this list isn't that good. Xfinity, he was a tiny bit better with 2 wins, 10 top 5s, 25 top 10s, and 115 starts. Post-career, the article says that he's now the CEO of the T-Rex Engineering and Construction Company. I actually had to verify this myself, so after a brief search, the person listed was reverse searched to indicate that this person is in fact him. So good for him. Number 9, James Hilton. Really? Okay. The article notes James as an independent owner driver, which logically means he owned his own team and did so the vast majority of his Cup career. It also notes the 20 top 5s in his first 41 starts in Cup, as well as his 2 wins. But then it also said that records from Racing Reference Info also show that Hilton failed to win any race in the Xfinity Series. Not the Xfinity Series, but Xfinity Series. That's great. And the Camping World Truck Series. Moreover, he also failed to score any wins in the ARCA Racing Series. Well, let's see. He only has 4 starts in Xfinity and 1 start in trucks in 2011 at the age of 76. Yeah, 121 starts in ARCA with nothing to show for it, but what the article conveniently forgot to tell you is that it is 602 Cup starts, along with his 2 wins, which was with his own team. He also had 140 top 5s and 301 top 10s. Exactly 50% of his Cup starts resulted in a top 10, which, considering the vast majority of his starts were for his own team in the era he competed in, that's a huge accomplishment. Okay, so for number 8, we'll skip number 8 for right now. Number 7, Casey Mears. Seriously, I wonder why Kamikaze Games hasn't written to this article yet. Because, like me, Kamikaze Games is also known for a big 3 that he roots for in auto racing, which consists of a legend, a very respectable veteran, and an underdog who didn't quite get the rides or respect or luck that he deserved. Like Andy Houston, who is my equivalent, Casey Mears fits that last category. Funny enough, Casey's segment in the article doesn't really get into much of anything regarding Casey. Everything was pretty much in the second paragraph. They list his 1 win according to Racing Reference Info. So close. But they forget everything else, which was his 13 top 5s, 51 top 10s, and 3 poles in 489 Cup starts. Which may seem pretty bad, but you have to consider the fact that he was never a top priority driver for any team he ever drove for. Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson were the top priority guys at Hendrick, and literally to hell with everyone else, and I would know that rooting for Kasey Kahne. Also, Sterling Marlin was the top guy at Ganassi during Kasey's era, but once he left, the top guy then became Jamie McMurray, not Casey Mears. Even with Germain, their truck program with Talbot 9 was the top priority until they were forced to shut it down due to sponsorship issues. As for Xfinity, they note his 1 win in 107 starts and his 3 ARCA wins in 6 starts. Kamikaze Games goes into deeper depth regarding Casey Mears in case you want to check out that video. After this video, of course, because we're not quite done here yet. Number 6, Greg Sachs. His part of the article is also a bit obscure, as it mainly talked about the open-wheel portion of his career, while once again referencing the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as a source. The third paragraph is where the mayhem here happens, as once again, they have the imaginary racing reference info, listing his 1 win in both Cup and Xfinity, and his 0 wins in 4 other racing series, where he has a combined 23 starts, and 20 of them were in one of those series. The rest of his Cup stat line was 3 top 5s, 20 top 10s, and 2 poles in 263 starts. However, like Dick Brooks, Greg has only had a couple of seasons that were or were very close to a full season. He also never really had a top ride. Xfinity, the rest of his stat line was 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 2 poles in 34 starts. But he only did even half of a season in Xfinity literally once. So yeah, a bit too obscure here for that argument. Number 5, Jimmy Spencer. Oh goody. And nice cover picture for Spencer too. Lol. Anyway, the article says that his nickname, Mr. Excitement, comes from him hanging out with the likes of Earnhardt Sr., not Earnhardt Street from earlier, as well as Bill France Jr.
Not exactly.
Also, the entirety of the second paragraph, according to data from Racing Reference Info, the most wins that Spencer ever had in NASCAR was when he competed at the Whelen Modified Tour. Of the 90 races he participated in here, he managed to win as many as 15. It was exactly 15, actually. However, he was mega in that series. Over 50% of his starts in that series resulted in a top 5. Wow! The third paragraph is where the rest of the starts come from, and all of those are accurate. So, not as bad as they thought, or some had wished they thought Jimmy Spencer was as bad as they want to believe. Jimmy Spencer is one of those that you can't really determine based on Cup stats alone. Surprising, I know. Number 4, Lenny Pond. Oh, dude. Lenny Pond is a local. He's from my home state of Virginia. And he's a legend here. The article even notes that, literally saying he's a 5-time late model champion in the Virginia short tracks. It notes his 1 win in Cup in 1978 at Talladega. It even notes the track and the name of the race this time. It also notes his 234 starts in Cup, as well as the Daytona 500 qualifying races again for some reason. But here's the rest of the story the article doesn't tell. The rest of his stat line in Cup says he has 39 top 5s, 88 top 10s, and 5 poles. That's a top 10 percentage of nearly 38%. What this article also does not say is that he only really had 2 full-time seasons in Cup. And in those 2 seasons, he finished in the top 7 in points. So no, he was not bad whatsoever. Number 3, Derek Cope. This clod can't even spell his first name right, despite the fact it's literally spelled out right there in the photo that was used. Now, believe it or not, Derek Cope was actually still a current driver in 2018. ended up being in NASCAR in some capacity as a driver for nearly 35 years. I am not making that up. Including at least one race in the 3 National Touring Series between 1984 and 2018. Yeah! His stats aren't the greatest, but there are 2 things to further consider here. A, he has won the Daytona 500, which, honestly, to me, winning that race doesn't mean as much as it used to. But you also have to consider, B, he never raced for a high-level team. You could try to argue some of the teams he was with. Bob Whitcomb, who both of Cope's Cup wins came with. He drove for Bobby Allison and Chuck Ryder at the end of their tenures as owners. Other than that, yeah, driving for level B teams at best during his era, his longevity should be respected. Number 2, Ron Bouchard. Ron only had a few seasons that could be considered close enough to be considered full-time. So, chastising him here was not a good idea either. So, let's see what the article has to say. According to data from Racing Reference Info, just stop. Talladega 500 would be Bouchard's only race win in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, despite the 160 races he entered. Is that literally how they formatted it? Oh boy. Meanwhile, he managed to win 2 of the 20 races that he had joined in the Xfinity Series. On the other hand, Bouchard failed to win races at the NASCAR North Tour. Okay. The stats listed are correct, but again, they don't tell the entire story. Ron had 19 top 5s, 60 top 10s, and 3 poles. His top 10 percentage was 37.5%. His top 5 and top 10 totals in Xfinity was the same at 8 out of 20 races, meaning his top 5 percentage in Xfinity was 40%. The North Tour wasn't exactly a legit stat either because he only has 2 starts in that series, although one of them was a top 10. So, once again, a swing and a miss by the article. So, apparently, the number 1 worst NASCAR driver, according to the Claude who wrote this article, is Elmo Langley? Of course, this part of the article started with Brett Bodine, who, as of recording, is the current pace car driver for Cup. So, of course, this Claude ends up with one of the most synonymous pace car drivers in NASCAR history. So, let's see. According to data from Racing Reference Info, Langley participated in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series from 1954 to 1981, because that's totally what it was called in 1954. Overall, he competed in as many as 535 races, but only ended up with 2 wins he scored in 1966. Okay, let's dive further into that. 63 top 5s, 193 top 10s, 1 pole, a top 10 percentage of 36%, all of that while more than often than not driving for his own team. So, yeah, not as bad as the article tried to make it out to be. As for the rest of the article, meanwhile, he also participated in as many as 7 races in the NASCAR Convertible Series, but failed to win any of them. He did have 1 top 10. Similarly, his Daytona 500 qualifying race results were also rather dismal. His best finish was at 19th place. Why are we discussing the qualifying races again? Just, wow. Wow. Okay, so, literally, none of these guys listed in the can't drive part are classified as bad drivers. Especially amongst us racing fans who actually know a bit more about racing than obviously this website and the article's writer. You know, years ago, I did a countdown with a more calculated and accurate approach, listing the 10 worst drivers in NASCAR history. I even did a YouTuber's Choice version when my video got called out for no reason. Yet we had a lot of similarities in the drivers that were selected that legit are bad. Drivers like Kevin Conway and Brian Vickers and Ricky Stenhouse and Michael Waltrip and David Stremme. And the guy who was number one on both lists, John West Townley. God rest his soul. Okay, so we're done with that article, except one thing. We didn't discuss number 8. So if you haven't looked up the article by now, number 8 on this person's list was in fact a member of the NASCAR dozen. And not only was it a member of the NASCAR dozen, it was a member of the Big Three. Now you're probably thinking it's Andy Houston because amongst the Big Three, Andy far and away had the least amount of success and luck as a driver. Well, if you thought the rest of this article wasn't stupid enough already, then it's time to crank up the dragon rage because this colossal idiot put Johnny Benson on the list! Oh boy, I'm gonna have fun with this one! Because it's not just the fact that this stupid article listed Johnny Benson, my top guy overall, as an all-time worst, to which anyone who's been on this channel longer than 2 seconds knows that's not accurate. But it's also what this colossal idiot says about him. You don't believe me? Well, read along with me. From the very beginning, you can say that Johnny Benson Jr. was inspired to get into motorsports. After all, his father was none other than professional race car driver John Benson Sr. Well, no, duh, I couldn't figure that one out. Like, how hard is it to know that the father of someone who has Junior in their name shared their name? Great start! In the beginning, things seemed to be looking up. After all, he was also named the NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year in 1996, according to Famous Birthdays. Yes, Famous Birthdays, the obvious source for all your info regarding Johnny. As years went on, however, it became clear that Benson couldn't win as many races as he'd like. Are we going to discuss why, or are we going to assume that stats is it again? Because that totally works for your argument for the other 12 drivers supposedly bad that he listed, you flawed. According to records from Racing Reference Info, this better be the last time I have to read it like that, Benson only won a single race in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. On the other hand, he had much better luck in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, taking home a grand total of 14 wins. Meanwhile, he won 3 races in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and 1 race in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West. So, we're not even going to mention the fact that he's won championships in both Xfinity and trucks. We're not going to mention his 18 top 5s and 58 top 10s in Cup, despite never being in a top-level ride in Cup. And no, Roush does not count because he clearly was a guinea pig for Roush during his time there. Literally everyone knows that. We're also not going to mention his 19 top 5s and 35 top 10s in Xfinity, or his 58 top 5s and 90 top 10s in the Truck Series. Not to mention the fact he only had 138 Truck Series starts, giving him a top 10 percentage of 65% and a top 5 percentage of 42%. Last but not least, that includes the fact that he wasn't even the top priority guy at Bill Davis Racing. Mike Skinner was! Okay, rant over. But unfortunately, this article isn't yet. Because if that didn't make you question the mind of the person who wrote this, this will. Because this part is the stupidest part of not only this segment about Johnny, but the entire article! Read along with me. Although Benson's career in NASCAR may be less than impressive, that doesn't mean he left the sport empty-handed. In fact, Net Worth Post estimates Benson's current net worth at around $12 million. His profession is also currently listed as an actor, having reportedly appeared in the film Inspiration Point. Indeed, that is not bad at all. Do what? What in this idiot's mind made her think that was a thing? If Johnny Benson was in a movie, I assume we would have known about it. something here. Okay, so apparently this is the movie poster for Inspiration Point. Apparently a Benny Parsons stunt double and Eric Rowan were in this movie. Other than that, I see literally nothing that indicates that Johnny was in this movie. I couldn't even begin to figure out what this movie was about. So, let's go to an actual legit source that could probably tell me something about it in the IMDb database on the internet. Okay, let's see. This is apparently the plot according to IMDb. A coming-of-age story of an Irish-American teen, while debating on completing confirmation to please his fundamental mother, discovers the true meaning of community and sacrifice disguised as a polar bear. Do what? Wait. Let me read that again. A coming-of-age story of an Irish-American teen who, while debating on completing confirmation to please his fundamental mother, discovers the true meaning of community and sacrifice disguised as a polar bear? You want me to believe that Johnny Benson was in a movie with that synopsis? Okay, there is a person listed as Johnny Benson who plays Terry Corrigan. Who is Terry Corrigan supposed to be in this movie? Let me see. Kevin is the youngest son of a typical Irish-American working family. Kevin has two older brothers, Patrick the oldest and wisest of the sons, as well as the acting father of the family, and Terrence the middle and often troublesome brother. Yes, because that's totally something Johnny Benson would play in a movie, a troublesome brother. Okay. Let me dig a bit deeper here. Because I am spelling more than phony baloney here. So let's dig deeper on this one and actually put in his name on the IMDb website and see what happens. Well. Looks like there's actually 4 people in the IMDb database named Johnny Benson. And to the surprise of no one, the race car driver that we all know and love and the actor in this Inspiration Point movie are 2 different people. Even better, this tells us that Inspiration Point came out in 2008. Okay, let's see. What was Johnny Benson, the race car driver, doing in 2008? Oh, yeah.
And Johnny Benson will win the championship.
Buddy, you are the man. You are the man. Good job, buddy.
Wow.
Just, wow. This article was just all over the place. There were so many things that were just so wrong with it. And then my guy was brought into this, and the section on him was arguably the worst part of the entire article. Oh, man. Okay, so nothing is going to top this as the worst NASCAR article I have ever read. So, that was a long adventure. What did you guys think of this article? Did you find it as ridiculous as I did? I hope so. Well, anyway, that takes care of everything, and I mean everything, in regards to this article. I cannot believe this was a thing. And now, you know about it too. So, that's it for that video. If you want to see Johnny Benson in an actual movie, check out my Berlin Raceway Adventure movie that came out in 2021. I guarantee you that he is in it. So, that's it for today. Thank you everyone for watching. This is Ultimate 23 Dragon, and that's my final answer.
Just hit the button. It doesn't take that long. Subscribe, hit the bells, follow.